Hey guys, welcome to the Doghouse podcast. Got another got another special guest here. First time guest, Coach Hayes. Been a big fan of him. He's on Dawg's Dispatch, and he has the Coach Hayes film room. How are we doing today?
Hey, I am doing great, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show, man. Looking forward to talking all things Georgia and getting after it, talking shop, man. They're getting back at it this week with practice, and really excited about evaluating these youngins who are committing to the Dogs and all these guys that are out there sweating it out, getting after it right now.
Oh, yeah. Really appreciate it. Yeah, It looks like I think it's 29th here. We're recording it, so I think we're getting close to about 32 days. So it'll be here before you know it. Can't wait.
Yep, it's going to be we're right at a month, and like I said, it's kind of weird because we actually have a game before the Labor Day weekend gets here, I guess, because Labor Day is earlier, I guess, so it is on August 31st. I'm always used to us playing our first game in the 1st of September, but yeah, with them getting after it, starting practice, they've already been prepping for Clemson. We've I won't say the hay's in the barn yet, but there's definitely a lot of prep work going on right now for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you jump right into it. What's a little bit of your background? I know we talked offline a little bit earlier. I know you said you've been coaching for over 20 years. What's a little bit about yourself?
Well, believe it or not, when I graduated college, I was an athletic trainer. I was actually in sports medicine. So just like they do and take care of all those athletes, that's what I did for about 6 years. But sports go year round. Something I really enjoyed was being around the football programs. I was with Rome High School out of Floyd County, worked with them and had the opportunity to be advised and advocated to go back to school and say, hey, man, you really need to get into teaching and coaching. And so I went back through what's called the Georgia TAP program. I got recertified and got the certification for teaching. I started out in Gordon County, and in my first year, did not coach. Thank God, because that would have been probably a disaster because it's hard enough, in your beginning year to teach. But once I got my feet wet, I started coaching at Gordon Central the next year, which is in Gordon County in Georgia, in the Calhoun area, Northwest Georgia. And from there, it just blossomed. I started loving what I did, and I tried to perfect my craft. And as anybody would want to move up in the ranks, you want to move up to become a coordinator. You want to move up to become a head coach. So I started looking around after about 5 years, got my first defensive coordinator gig at North Murray, home of the McConkeys, got to coach Ladd and his older brother Hinton as well. Yes, I got a chance. Awesome. Yes, I did. I coached Ladd and his older brother Hinton. When I took the job at North Murray, Hinton, his older brother, was a sophomore. Ladd was in 6th grade. But I got a chance to, get to coach those guys and really enjoyed my time in Murray County. And then moved over to Calhoun City Schools and Calhoun High School, very well-known program in Northwest Georgia. Got a chance to coach my middle son through the program. So about 20-plus years of varsity football and coaching on both sides of the ball, both defensively and offensively. And just recently, in my last 5 years, I'm looking to retire here in the next 5 years. So I've taken an administrative job in Floyd County now. I'm not coaching anymore, but definitely love connecting those fans out there to the fundamentals of football with what I've learned over the years.
That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that. So you got a wealth of knowledge, and you can, as everyone can check out on his YouTube, he can break down some ball. So great to hear there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Before we jump in that real quick, got a great sponsor of the show this past year, and there'll be another one coming up. So VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. This is great on the golf course, great at the pool, great at a tailgate coming up. 0 carbs, 0 sugar. Got huckleberry, watermelon, grapefruit. Also, brand new flavor is actually just released the last couple of days. Coconut flavor. But if you want 20% off, Doghouse 20. Again, that's Doghouse 20 for 20% off. VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. My personal favorite is the watermelon. So check that out. Great sponsor of the show.
I'll have to check that out. That looks good.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a website. It's pretty good stuff. It's got a little tequila. It won't give you that bad hangover, so not a bad seltzer.
Nice. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at the 2025 recruiting. Georgia's been on fire recently, number 4 overall on the On3. And I wanted to get your thoughts on who could start right away. I know it's very, very early, and like we were talking offline, these kids could flip or change at any time with NIL and the landscape. But who do you think could play right away and make an impact for Georgia in 2025 from the current recruit or for their current commitments?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this. you could look at the elite of the 5 stars that are coming in, and I'm going to tell you this: we could possibly sign the best defensive line, defensive front, probably in the history of recruitment, if Elijah Griffin and Justice Terry decide to commit. And that's not really a big hypothetical. Those two are heavily favored to commit to Georgia. I know Alabama seems to be in Justice Terry's pocket a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if those two come as well. And if they do, that means Georgia locks 5 of the top 6 Georgia recruits. And out of those 5, 4 of them play in the front. So, if we bring those guys in, it's going to be just unprecedented what we're going to see from that group. But I'm going to stay away from them because that's where most people want to go to, the Zayden Walker at linebacker and that Isaiah Gibson at edge. And, of course, those two I just mentioned, in Elijah Griffin and Justice Terry. But if I want to call them this, I think believe it or not, what we're edging away from and we're focusing on the front is the secondary because of what we signed last year. And these 3 guys that we just got in Rashad Johnson, Jalen Morgan, and Shamari Earls, those 3 guys are thumpers. And I'm always going to focus on defense first because my passion and desire was being in on the defensive side of the ball. I converted over eventually to the offensive side of the ball. I've coached every individual position there is and understand the game from both sides, but I love the defensive side to begin with. So those are typically the ones that I'm going to hit on first. But the one of those 3 I just mentioned, I'm really just in awe of Jalen Morgan. Jalen Morgan, if you watch him on film, I have broken him down in my Recruit of the Week on my website, where he, as a junior, because you got to think about when I'm evaluating their film, they're juniors. So this is junior film that I'm looking at. He already looks like a polished senior. He is not only as incredible as a defensive back, but he is an unbelievable wide receiver too. I know Coach Coley is probably going to be fighting Coach Williams, Dante Williams, for that position because watching him on film, it's about 50-50 of receiver to defensive back. But when you see him on both sides of the ball, he is unbelievable in how he reacts. His footwork is great. He's probably going to have to work on his redirection out of his breaks, but still just very smooth in his hips, very quick feet. And when I broke him down, he was one of those where I looked at him and said, man, he has sort of that it factor where you're not sitting there going, hey, we're going to have to really polish a lot of rough edges. He looks polished already. And when I followed him up with Rashad Johnson right behind him, I really think those 3 guys, 2 safeties and 1 corner, those 3 are going to be solid players coming in for the 2025 group if they all stay committed and sign that national letter of intent. If I look at it from the other side, Taylon Taylor, Tyler Williams, 2 very outstanding wide receivers. Again, what I'm impressed with is I try not to go too in depth with the breakdown of their physicality of what they do and just all the specs that go with it. I just really try to look at their fundamentals, and those 2 as well on junior tape, very polished players. They know how to make kids miss in space. They've got very good spatial awareness. They both got long reaches, and of course, they're very fast. Coach, Smart and his crew, their evaluation. Coach Coley coming in back from South Carolina. I mean, he's just come right back in and just kept going where he left off. And I'm just so impressed with his evaluation of these kids that, are not necessarily talked about as the upper echelon when you look at the recruiting tables. But as you got Ladd McConkey, who I love dearly, and I love the McConkey family. Watching him get, come to the University of Georgia, have the success he did basically as an unrecruited kid and became a 3-star just because Georgia offered him. And now here he is in the league as the 34th pick and probably has one of the highest signing bonuses and contracts there can be for a 2nd-round wide receiver pick. So I just like that mentality that we are pursuing at that position. Not only are we pursuing kids that are fast, we're pursuing kids that just seem very polished, and they'll come in and just get refined even more once they, get into the weight room and establish the dominance that we want to see out there at that wide receiver position. So those are I would say those 2 on the offensive side and the other 3 on the defensive side that I'm excited about that I've broken down.
Yeah, really appreciate it. I watched that Jalen Morgan, great kid there. I like that he can play both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you maybe? I usually like comparisons. Maybe what's a comparison maybe of a Georgia or a current player, or maybe even NFL player for Jalen Morgan?
If I look at Jalen Morgan, just his overall ability, I'm not going to say that he's McCole Hardman. His body kind of
Hmm.
looks like him. More than his speed. McCole Hardman, I watched him in person at Calhoun when he came up and they played in the playoffs he was all they had there in their program, but I can't recall where he went to high school at, but they were playing, I think, Calhoun in the third or the fourth round of the playoffs. But his sheer speed alone was unbelievable. The only person that was closest to him that I think we've got in our class is the Todd Robinson kid out of Valdosta. He fits that profile as well. Very fast, very elite speed, plays a lot of quarterback, but I think we're actually bringing him on to hopefully be in the defensive backfield as well. So to compare Jalen Morgan, I would say his body reminds me of McCole Hardman, but just how he moves in space, you're probably looking more like a Javon Bullard type. But I think he's a little bit taller than Javon. But like I said, the thing that you love about him is the first thing they show on their film is they're thumpers. You see a lot of those guys at safety. Sometimes it's great. You can cover guys in space. You've got great footwork. You've got good redirection, spatial awareness, can get off the ground and go up for the ball and play great center field, but you don't want to hit. We're going to bring safeties in. They're going to, bring the wood. They're going to come after you. They're going to let you know if you come across the middle. So, that's one reason why I say Javon Bullard, because, people who are trying to comp that know what Javon did. Bullard would bring the hat if he had to. And that's something that I like about, Jalen as well.
Hey, if he's anything like McCole Hardman, caught a touchdown in that Super Bowl. He's had a great career for in the NFL. And then Javon Bullard, man, he was leader back there. Like I said, he put a hat on you and lay you out. I'll take that. I think he's turning heads with I believe it's Green Bay Packers. I think he's doing well with there in the camp so far. So hey, I'll take that for sure.
Yeah, the Power G just transferred over to from Georgia to Green Bay, no doubt. He's it's very nice to see the guys that we're getting kind of fit a complete package where you don't see where you're going to have to really take one area and polish versus the other areas that are, really good and refined. These guys coming in they're just being coached so much better now because there's a lot of great football coaches in the high school regions around the area. And we're pulling from a very heavy talent pool here in Georgia as well as around the United States now because of, all the different rapports that we've developed over the years with Coach Smart now almost being, in the head coaching role for almost a decade.
Sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. They, I like our coaching staff too. I think we got one of the better, at least recruiting wise and on the field. And Coach Smart's definitely building the right program. So yeah,
I can give you just a small nugget of insight on that. When you trust your coaches, it makes coaching a lot easier. And a lot of these guys not only are guys he trusts, but guys he played with. They're also Georgia alumni. There's a lot of them in there that are embedded that just help that situation so much better. Stacy Searles, for crying out loud, is an offensive line coach, been around Texas, North Carolina, but he's from the same hometown I'm from in Tryon, Georgia, up in northwest corner of Georgia. He's a country boy. I know his mom and dad very well and did know his dad very well. He's passed away now, but I know what Stacy brings to the table, Coach Searles and that coaching staff. And it means a lot when you have good rapport with your staff and there's a lot of trust there as well. It just makes the coaching perspective a little bit easier because it is a grind.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Stacy Searles, he's been a great pickup. I think he's a great technical or technique guy, and he's been great at recruiting Searles. So, yeah.
Without a doubt.
And then another one you might have already kind of touched on a little bit, but for looking at the 2025 class again, any like dark horses or maybe under the radar, maybe recruits that like, all right, I'm not sure about him if he's 3-star, kind of under the radar type guy you can mention.
My thing is looking down at the group. I wanted to go with an offensive lineman, but honestly, their offensive lineman that I've broken down, I feel, really good with Mason Short and with Cortez Smith, who we just picked up. We also got he's defensive lineman, but Dontrell Glover, that was the other one I was trying to think of. But I'm going to go with another wide receiver. I know I mentioned Todd Robinson a second ago. I think that's going to be a kid that's going to really be on high alert to start with. But the Landon Roldan kid that all of a sudden showed up, he was not on my radar at all. On my big sheet that I had, I'm sitting here looking at it right now. Landon Roldan was not even written on my sheet of all the different people that I've been in contact with. I try to populate a list in every position, especially with dates that have Georgia presidents. But Landon Roldan is one of those that he's a speedster. Now, does he have McCole Hardman's speed? Probably not, but he is definitely upper echelon of speed. What I've noticed with his program at Northrop Coney, they use him in all different variations of the game, from special teams punt returner, kickoff returner. They put him in motion out of the slot and run the jet sweep with him. They also like him outside, and he looks good in everything. Typically, kids that have a higher leg, they're kind of long-legged, it's hard for people to cut really well and to be able to put your foot down on the ground and change direction very quickly and stay the same speed. He does a really good job of that. And honestly, him coming in as a 3-star, I know with his offer now and commitment to Georgia, that's probably going to continue to increase, especially if he has a good senior year. I think he's another one that could add to the Tyler Williams and the Taylor group and be another one of those receivers that we're talking about once spring and next summer roll around. But he's definitely a dark horse I'd like to see do well.
Yeah, Landon Roldan, I think everybody, when they looked at his profile and everything, screams Ladd McConkey. So I was going to throw that out there. It's probably what everybody's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Is he comparable to Ladd?
I can't compare him to Ladd, because what Ladd had was his ability to move in space and change direction and break ankles was absolutely exactly what you saw day in and day out with him on the football field. Landon does not have that cutting ability, but also too, Ladd was shorter. Ladd was probably only around 5'10", 5'11" in high school. His ability to sink his hips and move and change, he would go 90 degrees all of a sudden. He'd be the same speed. I don't think Landon has that necessarily that, specific cutting ability, but as far as his ability to move in space, his ability to put his foot in the ground and get north and south and make people miss, I think it definitely runs a very close sort of comp to what Ladd did when he was in space as well. Ladd was just definitely a one-on-one when it came to his ability to cut. He just it blew me away watching him make people miss. And that's something that you cannot coach. That is just spatial awareness, understanding where people are in space and being able to just adjust in milliseconds to make people miss. And that's just something I've watched over the years, 20 plus of kids, that when they have that ability, you definitely want to utilize it, but it's not necessarily something you can go out and work on fundamentally and specifically with. They just have it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, really excited about Ladd. I was watching. I think he's on Twitter. He's already getting. They're calling him the receiver killer already. He's getting all our kind of receptions. He's gonna be a target monster for the Chargers.
Yeah,
so,
Tolbert's he's already realized what Ladd brings to the table, and I really see success from that. There's so many things that I'll quit questioning now with Coach Smart, with almost having a decade under his belt and what he sees. It's like I look at the list and I've got the 2024 commits pulled up here. I've got the 2025 commits pulled up here, and there's so much. There's so many differences aligned, but yet everything just sort of clicks together like cogs in a mechanism. And it's like where he was DB heavy here, the DBs he's getting in this class are going to be a great fit to the group he got last year. Didn't get as much defensive lineman last year, but this year is probably going to sign the best defensive line group ever in the history of recruiting, with the top 5 coming from from the state of Georgia. So I am seriously impressed with how he meshes these recruiting classes together, and we just continue to see a top 3, top 2 recruiting class, and he just continues to bring that heat to the college football in general. He is something to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I think hands down the best current college football coach. I know Nick Saban just stepped down, but Kirby's the man right now and one of the top recruiters in the nation still, and he's got them rolling, and Dogs aren't going anywhere.
No, they're not. Again, it's nice too when you're a Georgia native and you see a guy who has a dad for a head coach that coached in the state of Georgia for a long period of time, and here he is, played for his alma mater, and to see him come back as one of the most prolific assistant coaches under Nick Saban's belt, and to bring what he can do and take all the things that he liked about him and mesh his coaching philosophy about that just makes it makes you feel very special to be a Georgia Bulldog fan right now, because it's not just about coaching and coaching these kids up, and you hear what he says about these youngins all the time, but he truly means it. There's an investment that he has in these kids because he once was one of those. And that, to me, that's the biggest humbling that you can have, because you were there at one point in time. You've experienced what you're doing to these kids. And I think that's why the kids respect him a lot, because they see that same mirror image of what they were, what they are while they're going through the program, because they know he's experienced it as well when he was there through the Donning years.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just I always go back to, hey, the Rick years are great. He gets you that 10-2, but Kirby is just taking you to that next level with the top 1, 2, 3 recruiting classes in the domination. You just tell the difference in the program.
Without a doubt.
And then one more on the top 20. On the 2025 class. Is there a top target that's maybe a must need, or do you see Georgia really needs to have to try to land that'll make a difference?
Well, Jonte Gilbert's probably about to commit to us as well. I was going to say him, but I saw that there was a little heavy heat that he's definitely favoring towards it. But I'm going to go back to my boy that I've been talking about since day one. We're going to get CJ Wiley. I'm going to call it right now on your show today. Okay. And I've been saying it since, he committed to Florida State. I see a very big similarity to KJ Bolden's situation and what happened last year with him. I was so disappointed when Bolden chose Florida State, and I did not realize what was going on in the background. And man, Coach Smart never gave up on them. He continued to recruit him all the way up. And it goes to show that when there's real actual things happening and you're staying invested with these kids, regardless of where they're committed to, it just goes to show that, nothing's safe until we get to, early National Signing Day with them signing their NLIs and getting that taken care of. So my guess is CJ Wiley is going to be a Georgia Bulldog before it's all said and done. And what if we land Elijah Griffith, Justice Terry, and CJ Wiley and add it to these 22 recruits we have right now? And of course, Gilbert possibly could be favoring us as well. We will have, I don't care where we finish in the rankings. That doesn't matter to me. We will have one of the most solid recruiting classes I've ever seen, especially with that defensive front as well added to it.
That's awesome. You heard it here first. Coach A is giving his crystal ball, CJ Wiley, to the Dogs, to the good guys. That's have to keep my ear out and watch out for that. That's awesome.
I hope so. Maybe we can use it one day for a short and say, hey, Coach A said something about that.
There he is, 100% for 2024. There you
go. No doubt.
And then real quick, since we are coming up on college football here in less than 30-something days, wanted to get your maybe prediction, 2024 brutal schedule. Maybe get a preview and prediction for the 2024 team coming up.
Well, there is a solid chance, with 12 ball games being played, that I have predicted that it's very easy this year that if you can stay healthy, 1 loss to 0 losses definitely fit the table, even staying healthy throughout the season. If we lose somebody, I don't know if that changes the whole perspective or not. But just looking at the schedule, the first thing that glares at me is the Clemson game opening up and looking at them as a barometer, because Clemson, is what they've done in their past. Their history shows with Coach Sweeney. They've been successful. They're beginning to decline over the last few years, but I still think they'll be a good barometer for us as a first game playing in the Dome. It'll make me feel a little bit better as we head towards Kentucky over the Tennessee Tech game to Kentucky. Playing Kentucky at Kentucky, the last 2 years, I think the final score has been like 12-6, 14-7, or something like that, and then 16-6. I mean, we have not played well the last 2 years at Kroger Field. There always seems to be a weird injury. Somebody forgets to get on the bus. We lose a helmet somewhere. I don't know what it is, it seems, but playing Kentucky in Lexington really bothers me, just due to the fact that we don't know what Brock Vandegrift's going to bring. And there's a lot of association with JDJ at linebacker, with Brock Vandegrift at quarterback. There's a lot of weird vibes that's going to be at that ball game, and being the third ball game of the year. So Clemson is going to be that barometer. If we play well against Clemson, I'll feel a little bit better about that Kentucky away game. And the only reason why I say that is because of what we did last year. We were slow out of the gate against South Carolina and Auburn, and those were our two bigger games at the beginning of the year. Clemson and Kentucky kind of fit that as well. A lot of people say Kentucky shouldn't be a challenge, but Kentucky on the road tends to always be sort of pebble in your shoe. And I want to be able to see us go out there and, have a really good game against them. I'm not really as worried about Georgia versus Alabama way, just due to the fact that I don't think DeBoer is really going to see a very successful first year. I really am going to be very surprised if Kalen DeBoer doesn't have anywhere from 3 to 4 losses this year. I don't know. Culture change, when you have a head coaching change, there's a philosophy change, the culture changes. And, it just goes to show when most head coaches show up to a new program, they can't ride the coattails of the previous head coach. It comes down to it. I just don't see the Alabama. Now, I'm going to say this. The Alabama game, to me, is the most important game we play all year. We've got to get that monkey off our back.
Oh, yeah.
We have got to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa to get that monkey off our back. I don't care if Tom and Jerry were the head coach on the other side. We have got to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa just to get that sort of bad taste out of our mouth, just to move forward, even in the Kalen DeBoer era. Because they're going to have the excuses of, well, it's Coach DeBoer's first year. We should have lost to Georgia. But then if they beat us, they're world beaters. They've got nothing to lose and everything to gain from that game. So we've got to beat them on the road there. But Texas is weird because Texas at Texas. Auburn, I'm not saying anything about because we're playing Auburn at home, and we seem to be taking care of business with Auburn. I think Coach Freeze is doing a great job at Auburn, and I do think they're going to be a little bit more successful. But until Peyton Thorne can throw a football more than 20 yards down the field vertically, I'm not really worried about them at home. Georgia against Texas is going to be a very weird game because Texas will have just played Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. I always have to say that really slow. Because I always fumble it up. But I really do think that it's a big game in Austin. It's a different atmosphere for every player there. There's not one player that has played in Austin. So it's a new environment. It's going to be very loud. It's going to be very hot. And Coach Smart, no matter what he does to prepare those kids, it's just going to be one of those games that's very unique. Now, can Texas get back up on the hype train after playing Oklahoma? I would almost say that whether they win or lose, it's still going to be that game, because if they lose to Oklahoma, it's going to be the rebound game. If they beat Oklahoma, then more than likely they're going to be predicted to beat Georgia, when Georgia comes to town, just because of where they're at hype-wise at that point in time. So that's the one game I see us losing across the board if we do lose. I worry a little bit about Ole Miss later on in the season due to the fact that Lane Kiffin, he lost his father a couple weeks ago, Monty Kiffin, and I know this is going to be a special season for him in remembrance of his dad, who was one hell of a defensive coordinator. Brought in the Tampa 2 with Tampa Bay Buccaneers is something I used a lot defensively too. But I know he'll be living off of those vibes, and he does have a stellar defense that he's brought in. The only problem is stats show that mercenaries that come in as a transfer portal, I call them transfer portal mercenaries. Right. I don't really know if they're going to be able to solidify and create the chemistry that they need to be a top 5 contender. I don't even know if a top 10 contender. It really just depends on what the offense can do. But they do bring back Harris and wide receiver, Jackson Dart, one of the more dangerous quarterbacks are out there running and throwing the football. So, playing them late in the season could be, especially playing them in Oxford, could be, a hiccup for us as well. So I see us, if we do lose 2, we lose to Texas and possibly Ole Miss towards the end of the year. But I really do think a 1-loss season would be fine. And honestly, if we lose 2, we're still in the playoffs. Probably not playing the SEC championship, but definitely in the playoff grind. But it's so new this year; everything's unprecedented. We just don't know what to think. But I'm gonna say this: if we go through this season undefeated, we should be winning, reigning national champions. I know that because we've got a brutal schedule.
Completely agree. I'm on the same way, Leith. I'm in that 11-1 on a good day, 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
and still miss the SEC championship game because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Maybe save our legs if we can just stay healthy.
Yep.
You could ask one thing: what does Georgia need to do to make it to the playoffs for the national title? Is stay healthy.
Staying healthy.
There, and we're great everywhere. Even with Ra Thomas thing that just happened, still very deep at wide receiver.
Yeah, well, if you look at what happened with C.J. Allen and, with Raylan Wilson. I mean, those two kids are great linebackers. But when you're young and you're trying to execute and the game is coming at you 100 miles a minute, no matter how good of an athlete you are, it's hard to execute because I've always said you can't be fast and confused at the same time. And that's what happens a lot. And we got to see the trial by fire that they had to go through. And now after a year's worth of being under that regime, now they come out the next year. I see stellar play from those two probably this year. It's the same principle. It's tough when you're looking at those guys who get hurt and you have to replace them with younger, very elite talent, but yet you're still going to see mistakes. You're still going to see those hiccups that just make you want to pull your hair out. And when you're playing elite talent and they take advantage of it, sometimes that's not so good for the team that has the younger kid out there. But that's what you have to do sometimes. You just have to sometimes throw the young bucks into the deep end and let them hunt. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, very excited about the start of the season. We'll be here before you know it. And Coach Hayes, really appreciate you coming on. How do we follow you on social media and your other YouTube channels?
Oh, man. I appreciate you having me on. First off, thank you for the time to let me come in here and just bore everybody to death. But I try my best to stay on Twitter and YouTube as much as I can with my social media account, which is at Coach Hayes Huddle. And that is Huddle spelled with HUDL. Also on the Dawg Dispatch with John Smith, who's at John Tweets Sports. And we do a podcast as the season begins. We'll be doing that. Actually, we'll have 3 shows a week that we're going to be doing. Our website should be up very soon. John has just come back from the West Coast and came back very sick. And so we haven't had a chance to have a show here in a while, but we're going to be trying to do a pre and post show and doing a middle of the week show to kind of preface what we're going to be facing during the end of the week. But I also have my own channel as well. And I'm on all social media accounts, Twitter and YouTube mainly, with Instagram and TikTok as well.
Yeah, make sure and check out Coach Hayes. Got the Coach Hayes Film Room, Dawg Dispatch. He's also on Twitter, TikTok. He's everywhere. So check out him. We really appreciate him coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again, Coach. And if everybody's still around, make sure to like, subscribe, and share Dawg House Podcast. And we really appreciate it. Appreciate it again, Coach Hayes.
No problem.
All right.
You got it up. How long did that go?
Probably we got 30-something minutes. Probably make some edits.
Awesome.
I'll probably try to share it later, and I'll tag you on Instagram and everywhere. I usually try to do that with all the guests.
I appreciate that. I hope I didn't talk you to death. I haven't. You caught me kind of at a I say not a bad time, but you caught me at a time where I've been sort of like, being out in the middle of the desert and you see a mirage of water. I haven't done a pod with John now in almost 3 weeks. So I've been dying to do just to talk to be able to get out there and talk a little bit. So you got that. You kind of let me, got
we'll
the
blow the dust off for you. Get you a practice, right?
Is exactly.
Let you warm up a little bit.
Yeah, let me warm up a little bit. But yeah, it's I've been wanting to talk for so long because there's so much stuff that has happened since John and I did our last show. So, but anyhow. But yeah, man, if you want to check anything out, just be sure to look, and you can use anything off of my YouTube page if you want to record, like a small segment of the Recruit of the Week or anything, and want to put it on your page. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. If you want to use it for your edits to save you having to find stuff to put on there yourself.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I'll tag you on all the socials, and we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Hey Trey, I look forward to it, brother. You take care of yourself. You need me for anything, you holler at me, okay?
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.